if you talk about greatness, you can imagine maybe somebody coming along who does everything Pelé does, but does it better, and somebody who does everything Cristiano or Messi do. And I know it takes a lot of imagination, but there'll never be another Maradona, because even if somebody could come along and emulate what he did on the pitch, you would never get sort of the full cocktail of the charisma, of the underdog tale, of his ability to sort of be at once an iconoclast, to sort of coalesce people around him, and to make a lot of mistakes and to make a lot of self-destructive choices, because that is a big part of the Maradona story. Somebody used a line that he came closest than anybody else in football, and to ascending high as high as you can go into the sky. But then he also spent a lot of time in the gutter, and that makes him human and an almost biblical figure.
That's true. Do you believe that? Of course, that was probably one of the things that almost worked in his favor as well. The fact that his flaws, he was beautifully flawed, I would say. His flaws, though, kind of made us all relate to him a bit more.
I think so. And I think, look, I mean, we could spend hours on here, but I think you're right about the relatability, without question. I'm always struck by, if you speak to Maradona's former teammates, to a man, with possibly one exception, they only have great things to say about him, about his generosity, about his leadership. They didn't care that, sometimes he didn't take training seriously, sometimes he didn't show up to training at all. That wasn't the point, but just the human level, he connected with so many people around him. And I'll tell you one other thing, in many ways, for a big chunk of his life, there was something almost sort of teenager-ish about him, right? All his transgressions, the fact that when things didn't go his way, he would rail against FIFA or against Pele or against, the English, the establishment. But later on in life, he mended all those bridges, with everybody, with his first wife, the mother of his children, Claudia, with Pelé, with Gary Lineker. And I think that's a significant story as well, sort of the journey that he went on. I took him a long time to grow up. Maybe he never fully did. But, in the end, I think he leaves us, he leaves us sort of with closure in a lot of the relationships that he has. And I think that's important. And, Lionel Messi today sent out his message on social media saying that, he's no longer here, but he hasn't gone away. I mean, I'm paraphrasing from the Spanish, he is eternal. And yeah, he will continue to be eternal. There's not ever going to be anybody else like him.
I mean, as I say, legends never die, and that's definitely something that Diego Maradona is known for. And one of the things that he is obviously known for off the pitch, we know that he did have his issues, but it goes without saying that no matter what pitch he went on, whether it was for Argentina, whether it was for his beloved Boca Juniors, Barcelona, Napoli, he absolutely blessed that pitch. And I think a lot of people do look back at his run with Napoli and pulling off what seemed impossible at the start, as they look back on it in awe. For you, what was probably your favorite period of Maradona's career, or his favorite, or his tenure that left you in awe?
I mean, for me, it has to be sort of that period in between, 1985 and 1987, when, of course, he led Argentina to a World Cup, when he was at Napoli. The significance of Diego coming to Napoli is tremendous, because, of course, he went there he went there for a world record fee, his second world record fee, because he'd already set a world record fee when he'd moved to Barcelona, of course. And nobody could understand it, because, Naples is a big city in Italy, but it's also, especially at the time, was an impoverished city. It was a city that had a lot of social ills. People were wondering how they could possibly afford him. Italian football had been dominated, and is still largely dominated, by the big northern Italian clubs, Juventus, Inter, Milan. And he embraced the city and he achieved, he made the impossible possible. He won 2 Serie A titles, the first one, of course, in 86, 87 at Napoli, which is the reason why there's still shrines to the man today. And of course, along the way, he delivered that remarkable World Cup in 1986, which obviously will remain on the international stage as his crowning glory. And everybody remembers the 2 goals against England, one arguably the greatest World Cup goal ever scored, the other one the hand of God. And he did it again, 2 great goals against Belgium. And 1990, of course, he sort of willed Argentina, an Argentina side which not a talented team, all the way to the final against Germany. So that was obviously his pomp, right? After that, clearly there was a decline. There was a comeback at USA 94, which of course was stymied by that positive drug test. I guess his pomp would be that sort of 85 to 87 period. And I'll tell you what, Alexis, people have gone on, he had that incredible wit right afterwards. He scores a goal with his hand against England, and he says, well, no, it wasn't I didn't score with my hand, that was the hand of God. And we joke about it, and I remember the reaction in England about, oh, he's a cheat and everything. But in some ways it really was. If you look at that he scored those 2 goals in a 4-minute spell between the 51st and the 55th minute. And you can understand that the people who got it, the people who got that moment, get why it was the hand of God, why it was, whether you believe in a higher power or not, or providence or whatever, the ability to do something like that and get away with it, and then to follow it up with this 10-second dash where you go and you beat 4 opponents and score this unbelievable goal. There is something spiritual, something almost supernatural, quasi-religious about it. And I think that is how a lot of people lived it. And the fact that he did it, against England, which, again, rightly or wrongly, the people who invented the game, people who represent the establishment, that resonated with people. And he milked it, and he made no excuses for milking it. And, he exposed himself personally, both with the many bad things he did, which was with the good things that may be controversial. He exposed himself to a level which very, very few top athletes in history in any sport have ever done. He went out on a limb, and when he got things wrong, he paid a price for it.
Oh, Dieguito, definitely a personality that we will miss. And finally, I'm a huge believer that comparison is the thief of joy, but unfortunately now more than ever, the question is going to be asked, where does he fall in the GOAT debate, the greatest of all time? There's Pele, there's Messi, there's Ronaldo, both Ronaldos involved in this one. But for you, Gab, where does he fall in this comparison?
I know better than to get drawn into this debate, but I will point this out. I will point out that people belong to different eras, and it's not Messi and Ronaldo's fault that they live in this era. I will point out that Diego Maradona did it in 2 continents. I will point out that, he did it on pitches that aren't the putting greens that we see today, but on a lot of very bad pitches. He did it and Pele did it without the protections that are afforded to our star players today, the tackle from behind, the pulling shirts, a lot of the viciousness that was in the game back then doesn't exist today. And I think most of all, and this is why the statistical comparisons are frankly silly, he did it playing mostly for Napoli. He had the 2 seasons at Barcelona when Barcelona aren't what they are today. After 1996, the Bosman rule, when they limited limits on foreigners, that allowed the biggest clubs to grow richer, to grow more powerful, and to accumulate more talent. He never had the supporting cast that Ronaldo and Messi did. Nobody did in his era. And again, to be fair, neither did Pelé. So, and equally, because all the power and all is concentrated, it's easier to go and, run up the score and score 3, 4, 5 goals a game. So it's just a different era. It's a different benchmark. Let's just enjoy them. But as I said earlier, I don't think there will ever be anybody like Diego, Armando, Maradona ever again. It's just not possible.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.